Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to Get Hired in Tech. We have some local celebrities here, which is cool. We have Raine and Richeal, sorry. And from R2R Strategic Recruiting. What's cool about these two is I met with Raine when the group first started. A little over a year and a half ago, and so she's been part of the growth, been part of promotions, kind of been a hidden partner and really supporting the group, pushing people here, and she's been building her own business and brand over the last year and a half, a couple years, and getting that going. So really cool things. A few other things, we're going to be uploading some more videos here soon. Lots to come with YouTube and some other things. Looking at a couple different mediums, but also wanted to let everyone know I do see a lot of new faces, which is cool. And with that said, we've been seeing a huge influx in this group and members getting work. The power of networking, the power of coming to things like this, the power of interacting with people that are doing the same thing really does make a difference. Just recently, I've had 3 people from the membership call me up, shoot me a message on LinkedIn and say, hey, I can't make it to your group anymore, I'm sorry. Which is super cool because that's what we want. We want people, honestly, if I had my way, I'd see you one time, you'd come in, get your tips, and I wouldn't see you again. That's a goal of this group. Not because I don't want you here, but that means that you're working and you physically can't come. So that's kind of the goal of this group, is to help you get on your way as fast as possible and bring in resources in order to help you do that. So we try to bring in as many guest speakers and powerful people as we can within the community, within Vancouver, within Portland, within the region, to come in and kind of talk tech and what's out there. And not only tech, you can apply if you're not in tech, but you're looking at getting into it. This is a group where you can learn just skills, valuable skills about doing it. We also have the healthcare division. We're still tweaking that. We're working on that. So we've got healthcare and figuring out the mission and everything behind what healthcare does, what that looks like. We should have details here probably in the next month or so. Moving forward, we're still going to do it, but seeing kind of where that fits in the tech space and healthcare space. So it's going to be some exciting things coming on with that. With that said, I wanted to introduce Richeal and Raine and let them take the floor. Thanks, guys.
Good morning. Are we awake? Yes. Well, as he mentioned, my name is Richeal. I've been in recruiting and talent acquisition for almost 15 years. I got my start in light industrial recruiting with an express employment office, and it started from there, and I haven't looked back. For the past 7 years, I've been focused in tech recruiting specifically. I've partnered with organizations like PDX With in their infancy. In my personal life, you can find me slaying fish. That is my passion. My true passion is working with individuals, finding what's at their core and what they love to do, and working with organizations, helping them find that talent, and that's really what Raine and I focus on.
So, thank you, Richeal. She didn't mention, but her name is often mispronounced. Raquel, Richeal, Richard. On a weekly basis, candidates will send her an email, and it's, "Hi, Richard." So when we created our email addresses, I told her she couldn't use her first name, she had to use her last name. So her email address is royal@R2R Recruiting.
The reason that is because when Raine and I first started working together, for the first 3 years that we were together, she could not pronounce my name. So she came to me one day and said, "Can I just call you Royal? I think it's just easier." So since then, she has called me Royal ever since then.
You're all welcome to call her.
You can call me whatever you want.
So I'm Raine, yes, like the weather. Richeal and I have been working together for 10 years at 3 different employers. And as she said, we have focused heavily for the majority of that time on tech-related roles and working with tech job seekers and tech hiring managers Besides that, I am obsessed with golf, and I am a certified HR professional, but I like to say I do the hiring, not the firing. I like to say I'm in recruiting, not HR. So that's a little bit about us. And a year and a half ago, we decided to start our own consulting firm. The reason for that is we really saw a huge need in our local market. We do work with national companies, but locally, we as employers are really struggling with improving the hiring process. Many of you who are tech job seekers here probably are experiencing some of those frustrating things, that big black hole, no real feedback, just inconsistencies. So being on the other side, we have struggled to see that and help employers be successful, and we thought, what a better way for us to insert ourselves in and really be a partner to them and help them improve their process. They really do. They want to improve their process. I just don't think they know where to start and how to do that. So that is a big focus of ours. We do work with job seekers, but really it's more of our passion project. We don't, so we will partner with job seekers, hence why I'm here pretty much every other Monday. But our real alliance is helping companies improve their hiring results or their hiring process.
So let's talk about what we're here to do today, right? So this is a yawn-free zone, so I hope you guys are awake. No yawning, okay? We're going to talk about how you guys can effectively kill it in an interview, right? I think, I know for myself, I am naturally introverted and awkward, and for me, interviewing was one of those things that was really a struggle. So we're going to kind of walk you through those things on how to master your elevator pitch, how to overcome some of those objections that happen in behavioral-based interviews, and tackling those questions that most people hate. And then we'll open it up for Q&A at the end of that, where you guys can fire off questions to us on those things that come up in an interview that you struggle with. So we can kind of help walk you through some of those things. So we're going to start off with a little video. And in this, we're hoping you don't experience any of this in your current interviews that you've been through.
No jobs for manager, it's just for counter.
Good. I'm looking for the least possible amount of responsibility.
Mr. Hub, Mr. Jenner is ready for your interview.
Actually, we'll be interviewing as a team.
Committed this together. Now what is the general idea not in the details? Like people get all hung up on details. Like when student go in, I mean the only thing that could be like shite, could be none. It's not important. What is important? It's the I am.
Do you have any special skills?
Oh, yes, I do. I do voices.
What are your skills, girls? Oh, we can dance. You mean like dancing? We're really the dancers.
Yeah!
We've come to this planet looking for intelligent life. Oops, we made a mistake.
We're happy to be in America. Don't ask for a green card.
Mr. Matsuhisu.
Mocho. Martha, can I call you Martha?
No, you may not.
Okay. Human resources lady.
It's Pam.
I'm sorry. Well, Pam.
No, my name is Pam.
Are you saying Pan or Pam?
I'm saying Pam. Yeah, I'm sorry, who's this gentleman sitting behind you?
Hello, Ms. Lady. I have fast food experience.
Yeah, like 20 years ago.
Do you have any experience?
No, sir, I have no experience, but I'm a big fan of money. I like it. I use it. I have a little. I keep it in a jar on top of my refrigerator. I'd like to put more in that jar. That's where you come in.
We're not generally comfortable in an office setting, I would say.
I get cooped up.
So task-oriented.
not a workhorse.
I also get headaches from computers, so I can't be around them for too long.
I take stuff. If you're looking for a Clydesdale, I'm probably not your man.
We're slow learners. We're not particularly good listeners. That'll be a huge problem.
We're also slow learners.
What's your policy on Columbus Day?
We work.
Really?
Guys come to the new world.
Nobody in this town works without a mechanic, guys. You think you can find somebody who does, they tell you have my blessing. But I think we all know that person's not going to represent you as well as I can.
Well, our budget is $84,000 a year. Let's do this. You know, you guys are hired. You're in. You know, unless you're like the weirdest guys ever, and I don't see it.
Great. I thank you for your time. Actually, sir, I really need this job to impress a girl. Will you leave me out, please?
Please leave this office. We're done with this interview.
Do we get any sort of souvenir?
Get out of my office!
Hey, we tried, right? My resume.
I'm set, right? So, who in here actually enjoys interviewing? Besides you and Raine, because you guys are anomalies, right? So,
Dude ended up with his head on a stick.
interviews are a two-way street, right? You are there to interview them as much as you're there to interview them as much as they're there to interview you. It's an opportunity for you to showcase your knowledge, skills, and ability. So it's that opportunity for you to have a seat at the table. What I want you to remember is take that time to really invest in yourself, and that's what we're going to talk to you about today, is all of the preparation work that goes into this. It's going to seem a little tedious, what we're going to ask you to do here. Raine's going to talk to you a little bit about the preparation that goes into this. And all of this is about building a foundation. So she's going to go into a little bit about that right now.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about some basic things, but often I can't tell you how many times people have come in to interview and they are just not prepared with the basics. So know who you're interviewing with. If you, and we're really talking about that place of you've passed that initial phone interview. And some of these things you can apply to the phone interview, but we're talking about now coming into that face-to-face interview. So congratulations, your resume has passed the screening process and now you're going in and you've been invited. If whoever's calling you to come in and interview and they don't provide you an agenda, simply ask, who am I interviewing with? Majority of the time, you're going to get the names of who you're going to be interviewing with. And you want to, this is where LinkedIn comes into play. Look up those people on LinkedIn. Look at what companies, what industries, how long they have been with that organization, where they went to school. Look at their posts if you are connected with them. What are they commenting on? What are they liking? So definitely go in feeling like you know who you're interviewing with. Look at recent company news. A lot of people skip over this part, and majority of companies, you can go to their website under the About Us, and there is some recent news. And I say recent news within the last 12 months. Pull out something that is either community involvement, new product development, leadership change. Again, you may not be going into the interview addressing these things, but you're going to start to build more of a connection to that company and the people you're interviewing with. And ultimately, that is going to allow you to be more confident going in there. Review your resume. I cannot tell you how many times, and I'm talking executive level tech professionals fail in this area, where they come in to interview and I'm looking at their resume and I say, well, tell me about a time you did this, this, and this. That is third bullet point down in their resume. And they're, oh, yeah, what? Know what you have on your resume. And Richelle's going to talk a little bit more about how to really hone in and be prepared with those questions. Know why you are a good fit for the position. So we're talking about why you're a good fit, not why you're interested in the role. So go back and review the job description. This is where you want to look at what are those nice to have skills, what are those desired skills. This is where you also want to start pressing in a little bit more about who the company is and who they're hiring for. What are their values? Pretty much every company these days indicates what their company values are. Teamwork, collaboration, communication, doing the right thing even when it hurts. Put those down and align how your experience or things that you have done fit who you are. Research, research, research. Of course, it's like that's pretty vague, but it kind of goes back to the stuff that I had already mentioned about who the company is, those nice to have skills. The other thing is you need to over-prepare for questions that you ask during an interview. So I'm sure you've all heard, oh, I need to have questions. Richeal just talked about you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Most candidates that I've met with to kind of help them prepare for their interview, they're like, oh yeah, I have questions. I have, these 3 to 5 questions. Well, most of the time, those 3 to 5 questions are already going to be answered during your interview. How many times have you got to the end of the interview and you're like, well, my questions were asked, thank you. You need to go deeper. You need to be prepared to ask more questions, even though they've answered, 80% plus of the questions that are on top of your mind. A little known secret, there are many candidates that get rejected because they don't have questions at the end of an interview. So over-prepare yourself for what those questions are so you can end that interview with additional questions. Basic things, pre-planned logistics for the interview. Where are you interviewing? How long is the commute? What is the parking situation? My personal opinion is if you're not in that parking lot with your car turned off and looking at your resume at least 15 minutes before your interview, you're late. I cannot tell you how many people are late to interviews and they're rejected because of that. So pre-plan for your interview. Take something to write on. And it's more than take something to write on. Many people take things to write on and it's still in their whatever briefcase or bag. Have it out with you. Have it, make sure you have an extra pen. These are just some of the basic things. And bring your notes to an interview. I don't know, back when I was, out of school and doing interviews, it was all about like, oh, keep that eye contact, and you almost, I'm a note taker, so it was like, oh my gosh, I just lost all this information because I was taught to just keep the eye contact, be professional. Like, no. Most interviews are looking at how you communicate, how you listen, especially if you are a business analyst, business systems analyst, technical project manager. Like, they're looking at how you obtain the information. It's okay to take notes. Take notes. Take a breath. Read your notes. Reference them. And don't forget copies of your resume. Typically these days, the interviewers they already have your resume. A lot of people aren't even printing resumes. They're looking at it from their computers. But the one time you don't bring your resume, it'll be the time they say, you have a copy of your resume. So always have extra copies of this.
Anybody ever feel like this? I know I have. And when this question comes up, it's how personal do we go? How professional do we sound? So Raine's going to walk you through the differences versus, resume versus, that personal flair, and walking you through and maneuvering through this question, because I think it can really, really trip us up on how much is too much and how much is not enough.
Yeah, so majority of interviews either start with, tell me a little bit about yourself, or walk me through your resume. This is really an icebreaker. It's a warm-up. It's like, let's get this interview started. This is where candidates go off the rails really quick, and all control is lost in an interview process. And unfortunately, the people sitting on the other side of the table don't know how to control the interview. So they just let it go, and they don't know what to do but reject you, unfortunately. So what I want you guys to really be listening for when the interview starts is these two questions. Are they asking me, tell me a little bit about yourself? Or are they saying, walk me through your resume? Those are two completely different responses. So tell me a little bit about yourself. This is like your elevator pitch. There is a formula, and you can Google this stuff. You can watch YouTube videos. I highly recommend them. But for me, it's you keep it 1 to 2 minutes long, and a lot of people will say start with present, past, and future. So what is your current experience? What is your education or certifications? What do you love to do? Why are you here? And what are your goals? So this is just an example. I underlined areas where most people can just plug and play. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I have over 15 years of experience as a technical project manager at enterprise level SaaS companies with a master's degree in organizational development. Most recently, I have led custom development project teams using agile methodologies and became a certified Scrum Master. I am passionate about new product development, and I desire to work for a global organization. Pause. It's a perfect opportunity now to give it back to the interviewer, and they'll tell me a little bit about that. Well, they will start asking you probing questions. You can also end this with, would you like me to walk me through your resume? Would you like me to walk you through my resume? Asking them, allowing them to give you permission to continue to go on. So many candidates just go on and on and on and on, and you've missed a huge portion of that interview to really dive deeper into why you're there and what they're looking for from you. Personally, I love it when candidates will just automatically start here and then move into walking me through their resume. So if I say, so tell me, like when I'm interviewing somebody, so I see 10 years ago you worked as a business systems analyst, wherever, at Les Schwab in Bend. Tell me a little bit about that. So I love it when candidates actually bring me up to the high level and then go to the position at Les Schwab, and then start walking me through that. And start chronological. Most candidates start from where they're at when they start walking through the resume, and it's really hard for interviewers to see that progression that you've made. So go down, pick a place that is relevant. You don't need to start from your first job out of college or high school if you have 15 years of experience and that's not related. So pick a place that's relative to the position you're interviewing for and work your way up. Again, keep it a brief summary and highlight key accomplishments or a key accomplishment. Give them a little bit and allow them to ask a probing question. Would you like me to elaborate on that? And they'll tell you if they do. Richeal, anything else I'm missing on this piece? Is this familiar? Are you, when you're looking at going in for interviews, or now are you thinking, hey, sometimes I get this question, other times I get this? If you can get this part down, your confidence just, you're setting the stage for the whole interview. I mean, so many managers, you've heard, oh, we have whatever it is, 15 seconds, 30 seconds to make a good impression. If you can nail this down, your interview often, you've set a stage to go smoothly.
So I'm a firm believer in this. Now this, when we look at interviews, this can be really difficult when we look at behavioral-based interviews. And that's because, the notion behind behavior-based interviews is past behavior is a predictor of future behavior. And that's why, companies ask these questions. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to maneuver through those uncomfortable questions and how to, kind of position yourself to showcase your knowledge, skills, and abilities with a little bit of footwork. That's through examples, right? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, preparing those examples and how to set you up for success through them. So this all comes down to preparation. Now I talked a little bit about this being a tedious process, and it is. So everything we're asking you to do here can seem like a lot of work, and it can be a little frustrating and a little annoying because you don't really know where to start. But what I can tell you is that we found a huge amount of success with candidates who have actually taken the time to invest in themselves through this process because you have all the knowledge within you. Really what you're doing here is you are positioning yourself to have a seat at the table. As I mentioned to you earlier, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, but you're also showcasing what you have within yourself, right? So I want you to sit down and prepare 8 to 10 specific examples, whether that be success stories or challenges that you've experienced, conflict as well. Those are key areas that they're going to hone in on during that interview. And when I say prepare 8 to 10 examples, it's because they're going to ask you a number of questions in a variety of ways. I'm asking you to prepare a lot because they're going to focus in on those specific areas. Another area I want you to focus on are your strengths and your weaknesses, and we're going to cover that in a little bit. So these questions that I'm asking you, or these examples that I'm asking you to walk through, they're going to work in a myriad of ways through the interview process. And it's really creating that foundation for you to use it in multiple scenarios. So let's talk a little bit about superlatives. We can all sit and list multitudes of these, right? I'm awesome. I'm dedicated. I'm loyal. Well, if you list those and you are not providing specific examples, there's nothing backing that up. It's falling flat in the interview. If we speak in generalities in the interview, that's going nowhere, and that's a big, huge red flag to that person sitting at the other end of the table. So for every answer that you provide in the interview, I want you to provide a specific example on how you have executed that in your past. Right? So if you tell them that you're hardworking, I want you to provide an example of how you've exuded that behavior in the past. If you tell them that you have done something amazing, you need a specific point to reference that information. So what you're trying to do is you put the statement out there and you're tying that bow around that, showcasing how you've done that in the past. That is setting you up against the rest of the individuals that don't do this. And I will tell you that most individuals sitting on the other end of the table do not know what they're doing when it comes to interviewing. They're not trained in this. So you are doing their job for them, and you have just elevated yourself that much higher because you're controlling the interview. It should be give and take in the interview process. It's really setting you apart from all of the rest, and you're controlling that interview as well. When you're controlling the interview, you all of a sudden feel like you have a seat at that table and you feel confidence within yourself, which is really, really important as well. And you will start to feel a little bit better sitting on the other side of that table instead of nervous. Oh, yes. So, when we talk about why we want this job, I definitely don't like giving away answers that are super honest. I definitely believe in transparency in the interview process, but telling them that you're starving to death probably is not the best way to go about it, right? I am a firm believer in honesty is the best policy, but that's a little too honest. So, whatever you do, don't say the first thought that comes to your head. Just don't. It's okay. So what I'll tell you is do your homework, right? They're asking this question because they want to know if your values align with theirs, okay? They want to know if you are passionate about the work that you do. They're trying to see if you are a match to that position. So it's really important that you have done your homework, and if your values and what's sitting at your core is in alignment with what they're seeking. So before you put your foot in your mouth with this question, it's really important that you kind of do that footwork ahead of time before you answer this question. All right. So this example on the right, as much as I would love to say that wit and charm get you a job at the end of it, it doesn't always happen that way. It does happen. I've heard it happening. I've never experienced it. It's never been that easy for me, but it does happen. What I like to say is the rule of 3. And this is where you are picking 3 characteristics or traits that reside within you, and then using examples to illustrate each of those. So what that looks, I've prepared an example here. So kind of going back to what I was talking about before, I'm a fast learner. In this example, my last position required me to be proficient in NVC. Going into it, I had no experience with the framework. Within 3 months, I was recognized by my boss for becoming proficient, when it usually takes developers 6 months to be comfortable with it. So that person is highlighting their trait and then providing a specific example that highlights that trait. I want you to prepare 3 of these. This can be used in a multitude of scenarios in behavioral-based interviewing. How many of you love when you hear, tell me about your greatest strength besides Raine? She doesn't count. Again, she's an anomaly. She does not count.
I like interviewing.
She loves interviewing. I struggle with talking about my greatest strength. I am one that doesn't do well with showcasing those. I don't like talking about myself. I know that there are other individuals that I've talked with that also struggle. So what seems to be an easy question for some, not so easy for others. And this can be a point of contention. Some individuals struggle with this question because they don't know how to sell themselves, right? They fail to hone in on a specific set of skills to really highlight that area for the position that they are interviewing for. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to really, pave the way to mastering this question. So most of the time, they're asking this question to see if you're in alignment, again, when it comes to their company, if your values are in alignment. It's all coming back to, are you fit for this position? Right? They want to see if your top skills are something that they can get behind. Can they see you in that role based on how you answer this question? So when you think about answering this question, it's you really sitting down and doing the prep work behind it. Again, this comes down to this tedious work that we're asking you to do. but it really does pay off. So your safest bet to answering this question is to showcase your strengths and attributes that align to the position itself. And the easiest way to do this is to make a list of the requirements, take that list down, and then talk about your skills and how they correlate. That can include soft skills, hard skills, your education. Narrow that list down to 2 to 3 of your strongest skills. For each of those strengths, note how you have applied that skill in the past, right? That's your example, okay? Once again, you are armed and loaded when that question comes up to be able to plug and play that answer when this comes up. And you're gonna blow their mind because most people trip up on this question. They either kind of fall flat on their face, they try and find a way to kind of maneuver through this, or they have some kind of padded answer. There are times where this question comes up and there is, how would I say it, kind of a surfacey level answer to this. Again, you need to show up as your true authentic self when answering these questions, because most of the time they can see right through it. But if you're going through your experience and finding those things that really set you apart and they are in alignment with the position, you're elevating yourself that much higher.
Yeah, if I can just add, because people really struggle. I think they feel like they're answering the question, but in reality, I think a lot of the interviewers, like Richeal said, it is surface level. So look at some past performance reviews. You know, what are those greatest strengths that your current or former manager has called out? Look at any recognition or awards that you've gotten recently. What are your key stakeholders or clients saying? Like really drill down on those things. Again, if you can answer this, give the example and have some validation there to back that up, you'd be able to say, well, my last performance review, my manager said this, this, and this. Or, you know, you have your portfolio if you have that built out and you show, you know, hey, I was recently awarded, you know, this kudos. Dun, dun, dun.
You know.
This question, you know this one's next.
This is the worst one, right? Most people have the hardest time with this question. And I would say that it doesn't have to be your enemy. When we think about this question, I think there is this gloomy cloud that sits over our head, right? And it makes us all a little bit squirmy. What I'll tell you is just breathe. Just breathe. Because what seems to be a negative in the interview, which is this question, because what we're doing is we're highlighting an area where we don't feel so great about ourselves. But what you have the opportunity to do is take what tends to be negative and turn it into a positive. And what you're going to do is you're going to showcase other skills that highlight you in the interview, and you're again going to blow their socks off. So let's talk a little bit about that. So when you are thinking about a weakness, think in your head a little bit about what is something that, is an area that you can improve upon. Something that relates to the position, right? But something that you are currently working on today, and you're working to improve, and what that process looks like. And then you're going to showcase that in the interview. What that is doing is that showing that you are a self-learner, right? You want to learn and grow, and that you are taking the initiative to improve yourself. So what you have done there is painting that picture for that interviewer that you have highlighted those additional skills. What was a negative when you walked in there, you have now put your hat on your head and walk them through with 3 additional highlights, which you aren't losing, you're winning. Do you have anything to add there?
A lot of interviewers are also looking at how authentic Authentic, thank you. I'm on copy, so I'm like, authentic you are. And they'll press into it more and more if you aren't showing up like that. You know, it's that surface level question. So dig deep here. I would encourage you to have 2 more answers besides your first one, because this can be one of those tricky questions. There's a company here locally, Hub, I'm sure you guys know of them. They are really looking for how open candidates can be with their true selves. And you know, they're going to really dig deep here. They're going to be asking different questions that are really honing in these areas, but they're going to come out in a different question. So make sure that you're doing the work, getting real with yourself.
So let's talk a little bit about how you can gauge how you are doing in the interview. Have any of you ever felt that awkward silence in the interview where you're just not sure how it's going and it's awkward and uncomfortable? Well, if you take this approach, you can easily alleviate some of that pain that you're feeling or that awkward silence. And it is the question-answer question. So this is something that a dear friend of mine and previous colleague of mine taught me years ago when I was at CoreSource. And he calls it question-answer question. And so so this situation is the interviewer asks you a question, right? You provide the answer to the question, and then you're going to follow up with them. You're going to say, did that answer your question? This is going to give you an opportunity to have some dialogue with them. You can also ask them, would you like me to go into some more detail? Or is this the type of experience that you're looking for that would fit well within your team? Again, this is opening up a different type of dialogue. It makes it more conversational with that interviewer. And make sure that you are giving the information that they're looking for and allows them to address possible concerns that have come up right there in the interview, rather than you walking away and you feeling like, I'm not sure that I answered their question correctly. It gives you the opportunity to hit it right then and there.
Does anybody have any questions on this?
Please give examples as you are going through, like what is your weakness, what are your strengths. If you give some examples, it will help.
Okay. Let me check the time. So can we come back to that? Yeah, whatever questions you guys have, we'll definitely save some time here for Q&A. All right. Okay, so the interview is coming to a close. You've interviewed them just as much as they've been interviewing you. You thank them for their time. Again, these are some basic things. You know, reiterate your interest, why you're interested in the role. Why you're here. Ask them. So many candidates fail to do this, and me being on the other side interviewing candidates, I will not just offer up my feedback or opinion, but I certainly will give it to you if you ask me for it. So many candidates just don't ask the question. So for example, do you have, at the end of the interview, do you have any major concerns with me being a good fit for the role? You've got to be, when you ask that question though, you need to be open. You cannot be tense, you can't be like, I'm in that defensive state. It's not what this is about. This is you getting more clarification after you leave that interview where you stand. But ask the question. And I'm sure we'll share this presentation, but I put a link here to tips on how you can answer or ask that question. And it's all, I have to tell you, it's all about the tone and how you tee that up, right? But certainly ask the question. there's many times you're not going to get any feedback because you have people on the other end who aren't always being asked that question. They don't know how to respond, or it's a panel interview. Typically in a panel interview, there is one person that's going to speak up. So don't be afraid to ask the question. You might not get a good response, but at least you put yourself out there. And inquire about next steps. You know, what are the next steps from here? When should I expect to hear back? Again, many candidates fail to do this, and you walk out of that interview and you don't know what the next steps are. The other thing is you will sometimes get a different answer from a hiring manager than you may with an HR person. So always ask the question. Maybe you just got out of an interview with the hiring manager, and now you're going into interview with the HR person, or you're having a debrief. Still ask the same question. Like, at least you know where you sit. Because I'll tell you, the hiring manager's timeline is way different than HR's timeline. Way different. So that'll, and typically if you ask that to the HR person, you're going to find out, okay, well, there's a background check, there's a drug screen, there's a process, blah, blah, blah. So ask the question, don't forget. And then the follow-up. I think you guys have all heard the thank you. I say that, yes, you have to do a thank you, but how can you be memorable? How can you elevate yourself with all the other thank yous? Because typically you know that you are one of probably at least 3 other people that are interviewing for that job. So make it personal. This is where you are writing notes down in the interview, and write thank you notes to each individual, not everyone, not a group thank you, each individual. And even better, follow up with, a past example, a letter of recommendation, a summary of your past performance reviews, references. Give them, here's my references. Don't let them ask you for them. Proactively give them to them. Handwritten note goes a long way versus email, but the only thing with that is you got to get it out in the mail that day. The gesture goes a long way with hiring manager. Yeah, so you know that. And then stay in touch. So many candidates, so many candidates. They thought they had a good interview, they can get the job, and they don't stay in touch. There's so many examples of candidates who stay in touch and get hired for that role that you're probably applying for today and not getting a call back because they are going back to that person they interviewed 3 months ago who stayed in touch. So that's how you stay ahead of the job search process, are those companies, those relationships that you've built.
Along those same lines, I would say that I have candidates ask me at least a couple times a week if that is even still an important thing to do, if the follow-up is still important, and it is. They ask, do people still really do that? They do, and because they're asking that, I know that candidates are doing that. So it is, to Raine's point, it is so important that you do that because it does go a long way. Stand up from the rest, okay? So just to recap on what we've talked about. Be prepared, right? I know what we're asking is a lot, but we have seen it pay dividends in individuals landing those positions. And this is something that we're truly passionate about. We have seen candidates flourish in the interview process and land their dream job. But it all comes down to the preparation that you put in to yourself to really sell yourself in the interview process. And I can't say it enough. It is your opportunity to sell yourself, right? And it shouldn't be about them controlling the interview because you are there to interview them as well. And it's your opportunity just as much as it is theirs. And I'd like individuals who, have a hard time, selling themselves to really feel like they have some control as well. So ask engaging questions that create that time. For every situation, provide an example on how to follow up, right? And create those opportunities and follow up, as Raine just pointed out.
Are you guys ready to interview? No, you're not ready to interview. You're ready to go back and prepare, right? Prepare all those examples. So, what questions do you guys have? I know you said you wanted some examples
Especially
of.
what are your weaknesses? Some examples.
Well, I'm gonna let Richeal answer this, but for me, it's really hard to give examples because it's so personal. You gotta dig deep within yourself, and whether that's working one-on-one with Max or, one of us, or there's people out there, WorkSource is a great reference to just really sit down one-on-one with you and get to the core of what that looks like for you. Because if I give you examples, I'm going to be giving them from past candidates or me, and again, it's not going to come off as who you are. But I don't know, Richeal, do you have?
So I can tell you what my weaknesses are, right? So my weaknesses are fear of public speaking, which you can probably tell, right? My other weaknesses is I have a hard time selling myself. But Raine's right?
That's
For you, it's going to be different. Some people struggle with organization. Some people struggle with time management. There are all of these things that are different depending on the person that we're looking at. So I'm happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you after, and how to tee that up and how to walk through how to answer that question. Because again, what you don't want to do is, if you are interviewing for a project manager position, you don't want to tell them I'm weak in time management, right? Or I have a hard time managing budgets. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot when answering that question. So you also have to be mindful of the position that you are interviewing for, because that can hurt you as well. So that's why it's important to come up with a couple of them, so you can kind of plug and play them for the interviews. Okay.
What other questions?
Question for you guys. How would you address the question, tell me about a difficult time with management, or something like that? I've heard this question before.
Conflict. Conflict. Yeah, conflict comes up a lot.
I don't want to be too honest.
Yeah. So conflict is another one of those loophole questions. They're looking for you to be open, honest, and engaging in that answer as well. And when you think about conflict, you need to pick a point in that, and you need to provide a specific example, right? So what you're looking to do here is not use generalities, right? And I like candidates to pick three, right? Pick three where you've managed conflict. This doesn't have to be some treacherous thing, because sometimes we can get kind of tripped up in that, because you can experience trauma in those situations, right? And that can bring up a lot of angst in that. But pick 3 points where you have, that can be, I mean, if you're working in tech, that could be managing to a deadline, right? Or you had an issue working on something with the developer, right? So conflict can look different in a multitude of ways. It doesn't always have to be something that was horrid, right? And they will ask you, conflict comes up in every behavior-based interview, because they want to see how you worked through that, what your communication style was, and what the end result was. If you're not tying that bow around that and painting that picture, they're going to red flag you as, they're alluding from that question. They didn't really answer that. So what is that story, and what was that? So you need to get this statement and paint that picture for them. And the other thing is if you notice that maybe there was an area that was a little gray, or there was something that you learned through that, you can also showcase what that was as well. Because I feel like when we talk about conflict, there always isn't this light at the end of the tunnel or a rainbow, right? So you can also talk about those things. Well, this didn't go as planned, right? Because there are other situations. But what you can do is say, you know, this is what I learned as an outcome, or this is what I'm doing differently today. Does that make sense?
And then I think we're gonna wrap up, and I think they're gonna stay just for a little bit and answer some questions after. And just run on time. So everybody, thank you so much. That was awesome. And then I will add just one quick note to the weakness question as well. One way that I approach it is if you have a weakness and you say something exactly what they're saying, the one thing that I would add, and the thing that I coach when I talk to people about that, is I always have a solution to the weakness that I have. So if I'm saying, hey, I've got this thing, I know this about me, this is really personal, don't just leave it at, hey, I've got this. Also have a solution to say, hey, I understand I am weak in X, Y, Z, but I know this about myself, so here are the things that I do to combat that. And this is something that I constantly work on. So that way, yeah, you're saying your weakness and you're vulnerable, but then you're also showing the employer and the hiring manager, hey, I know these things, and they're going to look at that. When I interview somebody, when I talk to people, a lot of times I'll sit there and I'll say, hey, what is it that, why, talk to me like a person. Tell me what it is. Because then I know that if something happens within the workplace, within their job, within anything, they're not just going to fold up and kind of go away. They're going to sit there and say, all right, I'm going to figure out how to make this better. So always have a solution. But with that said, take a look at the YouTube channel. This is going to be up there here probably within a week or so. And more technical difficulties on my phone. I think I'm just going to just toss it and forget it. I don't know.
Where should we look for this on YouTube?
It's going to be TC Anchor Consulting. I will send out the links on the meetup page.
I use your name.
Yeah, my name, if you literally, I did it last night just for a test. I Googled my own name, and I have like 2 or 3 presentations that I've done within YouTube and different lectures. You can go find it there, or if you go to YouTube, look up Max Grisman. We've got previous speakers there. We've got tons of content. We're going to be doing some individual series and stuff like that. So anything that we've gone over today, anything that you want, if you missed something, like I forgot what they said, it's going to be up on YouTube here shortly. So thanks for coming, and I hope to see you guys in a couple weeks.